must take action to protect our children from harm online.
Initially designed to increase connections, social media is now having the opposite effect.
Some people are worried they are becoming addicted to their phone.
I really don't think that I can imagine a world without technology.
Social media addiction is a growing concern for many parents.
Rolling and scrolling.
It's a dangerous place for children.
How much is too much?
Is social media hurting my children?
These modern-day weapons of mass distraction.
Bill to ban children under the age of 16 from social media.
We are ready to kick off our special live event this morning, Kids in Crisis Screen Time.
Children and adults alike quickly assume that social media is the root of all evil. We younger people claim that our phones are taking over our lives as if we quite literally cannot function without constantly refreshing them for the latest gossip. And even more, the parents and adults in this room would probably say that most children are rotting their minds with the content they are viewing online. But to be completely honest, we have all framed the issue in the wrong light. The real problem doesn't lie in wasted time or explicit content, but instead in the fact that our online interactions are encouraging immorality, which can have profound effects on our moral developments. While we are right to be panicked, we are panicked about the wrong thing. That's why I'm not here today to support our exaggerated and misguided complaints about social media. I'm here to address the real problem. What if I told you that the online interactions adolescents engage in go on to form the foundation of their character? And even more importantly, the very nature of the digital world encourages harmful interactions. It is no longer a question of how moral an individual is, but instead, how immoral the digital world is making them. So before we are quick to conclude that the adolescents pursuing unethical behavior online are fundamentally flawed people, recognize that maybe social media is shaping them to be this way. Not because of the time they are wasting or the content they are viewing, but because of the interactions they are having. I'll explain. Morality is best defined as a set of standards individuals hold to cooperate with others. It's our sense of right and wrong. It's how we recognize what is beneficial for not only ourselves, but also for those around us. American psychologist Lawrence Kohlberg understood that it was our unique characteristics and life experiences that make up our moral values. So, in 1958, he developed a theory that explored what factors impact our moralities. He based his work on French psychologist Jean Piaget's 1932 theory of moral development for children. By dividing his approach into age group categories, Kohlberg has given me critical insight into what individuals prioritize at each stage of their lives when developing their values. According to Kohlberg, the stage most pertaining to adolescence is the conventional level. During this phase, we focus on creating and preserving relationships with others. We use our relationships to solve our moral dilemmas, which can become the foundation for our adult moralities. To provide an example of one of these moral dilemmas, let's take two middle school students, Sally and Bob, as an example. Sally asked Bob to share his favorite pencil with her in class. Applying Kohlberg's theory, Bob's decision to share would be because it is the right thing to do to preserve his friendship with Sally. Younger children would most likely only give up their favorite pencil to follow a classroom rule or gain the validation of a teacher. But since Bob is older and more morally mature, his decision is based purely off the fact that he wants to maintain his friendship. Another American psychologist, Carol Gilligan, took Kohlberg's theory a step further. Gilligan argues that through relationships, we gain experiences that teach us to view our morality from a perspective built on care. By developing this specific moral orientation, an individual learns to prioritize directing respect and empathy towards others. Except, what happens when they don't? If the relationships we form in adolescence are as crucial as both Kohlberg and Gilligan claim them to be, they're integral parts of our moralities. What happens when we lose our natural inclination to care? And even more importantly, what happens when the world we do most of this relationship building on naturally leans towards corruption? Because as all of you know, adolescents do most of their relationship building online. And while that's honestly really sad, it's inevitable because of this new digital age we have entered into. This is a whole new world of interactions that requires a whole new approach to keep ourselves in line while we are online. The digital world exacerbates a process called moral disengagement, which is when our moral attitudes do not reflect through our actions. Rather than simply altering our actions to fit with what we know is right in our minds, we do the exact opposite. We change our standards and values to justify how we are acting. Bit by bit, we chip away at the moralities we spent our entire lives cultivating. Let's say, for example, that there was a student at Episcopal who didn't like the idea of badge wearing when it was first introduced to campus. However, this student quickly came to understand that if they didn't wear their badges every day, they would be punished. So, rather than taking a stand, refusing to put their badge on, and suffering the consequences of many lunch duties, this student does the opposite. They change their internal attitude towards their badges, understanding that it is a necessary and good thing for them on campus to justify how they must act. And while this is a really silly example with little harm coming to the student's morality, moral disengagement can be found in much more detrimental circumstances. It's how we, as fallen individuals, act unethically, even if we hold ethical standards. And on social media, this process is only increased. Because online, we are physically removed from the consequences of our actions. While the harmful things we post or the comments we make while morally disengaged online might subject one of our peers to a long night of ice cream and rom-coms, we don't see this. And this behavior can become a pattern in which we justify our behavior by removing ourselves from how our actions or words make others feel. We leave little stains on our internalized moralities. We feel like good people, even if we don't act like it. And if we surf the web for even a few moments, we could easily find an example of it. It can be found with the recent backlash against Taylor Swift, with people aggressively spewing hate comments towards her, all because she attended a few football games. And online users allowed the entrance of her fame and success into the NFL overshadow her worth as a real person. And this is by far not the only example we can find of this online. It can be found in even graver circumstances as well. Because the individuals who voyaged down to the wreckage of the Titanic on the Titan submarine spent their last moments in darkness, unaware of the end that was near. Even though death was imminent for these men, those online did not recognize the gravity of the situation. They spent their last moments surrounded by a setting like this. And online users responded like this. People online used this incident to spread an eat the rich sentiment, in which people practically said that these billionaires had deserved what they had gotten. They had deserved to die. One Twitter user even went as far as to say, billionaires deserve to die 2 miles under the sea, 5 feet in front of you, in space, over here, over there, anywhere. Social media sites became an ethics-free playground. People online shamed these men for their economic status as lavish billionaires. The tasteless jokes that circulated the internet were frankly immoral. The jokes that were made at the expense of real people and their loving families. If there was a camera inside of the Titan submarine that allowed us to view these men's faces as the Titan submarine imploded, as these men died, would people online still have the nerve to joke about it in the sense that they had done? People typed what they never had the sense to hopefully speak out loud. And I know many of you are sitting in the audience right now thinking that this does not apply to you. You would never do anything that you actively considered immoral. Even more so, that was an extreme example. And while you might be tempted to joke about or brush aside what I'm about to show on the screen, it was a serious incident of moral disengagement that happened on our campus. It caused people to feel terrible about themselves because of anonymous comments that were made online. You might be sitting here thinking that neither you or your actions could have that big of a consequence. But you do. They do. Quite often. Because the scary thing about all of this is that it is a mostly subconscious process. We perpetuate this behavior just as much as the internet trolls did last summer. It might be smaller, but it is just as serious. And it can have profound effects. Because most of the times, the people we act this way towards are our friends. But it's become quite clear that the love and empathy we are supposed to direct towards our friendships is not a strong enough barrier for this type of behavior. It wasn't in the case of Gabriella Green, a case where friendships turned rotten and the digital world got the best of 2 young middle schoolers. If you're gonna do it, just do it, was a young Florida student's response to Gabriella Green's confession that she had attempted to take her life. Sadly, she did just that. On January 10th, 2018, Gabriella was found unresponsive in her family's beach home. Green had been experiencing intense cyberbullying from 2 of her classmates and reported friends. They had been threatening to publicize personal information about her life, calling her vulgar names, and spreading rumors, all through the digital sphere. After her first failed attempt, Green immediately contacted these 2, most likely looking for some show of remorse or sign that they felt sorry for what they had done. Instead, they simply encouraged her to finish the job she had started. These 2 students were students that were just like us. Those who were committed to loving relationships with their family and friends, those who loved other people just as much as we do. However, online, they were able to disregard all of that love and empathy, all their desire to be good individuals. What's stopping us from doing the same? After examining these examples, it's become quite clear that we need to approach digital relationship building differently. We often forget that us adolescents are creative and resourceful, denying us autonomy over our moral identities that will only serve to stunt our social and emotional growth. In truth, the solution to this problem can only be found in our hands. We are the ones who are so immersed in the digital culture that we have the tools to use it successfully. If not for ourselves, then for everyone around us. For young children like Gabriella Green and anyone who has ever fallen victim to a case of digital immorality. The solution is simple. We must explore the consequences. Sometimes all it takes for change to happen is for us to recognize what we have been doing and the consequences this has on others. Knowing that our unethical behavior will not only diminish our drive to build caring relationships, but those relationships themselves will hopefully prevent it from happening in the first place. Because digital immorality is a pressing problem, and the current and upcoming generations need help. We live in an age that encourages immorality, but are somehow expected to act like good people with little example. So we must be the ones who take the extra steps towards understanding and immersing ourselves in this new digital culture. To not be good people who do bad things, but to be good people in both thought and action. To hold ourselves accountable, to recognize what we've unknowingly been doing, and most importantly, to care for others. In turn, we care for ourselves.